Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're doing another check-in video for the month of September. I am sitting down again because my back finally stopped hurting, and now I can sit down for extended periods of time, like recordings, and it's not annoying. And yeah, today is just a check-in video. There really isn't too much. I haven't had a chance to read that much, or like I've had a lot of time to read, but I've been spending it on the wrong things. So it should be pretty quick to get through this video. Also because I have not been watching too much TV. So let's just jump into the watch list, the stuff that I've been watching so far. I finished watching The Boys Season 4 with my roommate. We did not watch Gen V, so we were a little bit lost in the last couple episodes. But I think I have a opinion that is probably shared with a lot of people, even though it's not necessarily something that people usually say. I think that The Boys was not as good as the previous 3 seasons. Not necessarily because the story was worse or anything like that, just because it was a bit more on the nose. Like, I always understood that it was making fun of, far right-wing people. But it was a bit too direct this time, and I find that that's not enjoyable because it stops being appealing or interesting or funny if you literally just like quote things that Donald Trump and the right has said, because then it becomes like not necessarily too real, but it becomes a bit too direct, and that loses some of its appeal. I don't know how to explain it properly, but hopefully that makes sense. I also found that the way that it treats Huey is pretty shitty. I wouldn't necessarily say that like I hated the show or anything like that, but the fact that the first season of The Boys was very serious about the way it handled sexual assault and stuff, or at least made it much more seem problematic. And then when Huey gets assaulted and then raped by a clone, it's treated like a throwaway. Like, I don't think anyone ever questions or asks Huey if he's like okay after Tech Night and after his stint with the shapeshifter. And it's kind of fucked up. I think it's not good, because if you're going to like interact with these types of things, there is a certain level of seriousness, I guess you could say, that you need to take the subject with. And because it's The Boys and because they're used to doing crazy shit, I feel like a lot of people probably didn't even care. But I was mildly upset about it. I thought it was kind of shitty how they basically ignore Huey's problems and they make it about all of the other characters having problems. And it's not great, because I would consider Huey the main character of the show, and him having all of these things happen to him and having this evolution and not being represented enough is annoying. It's bad writing, and it's kind of like a condition of a lot of Amazon shows, especially like The Wheel of Time. I hate that they make Rand, the main character of the book, of the series, like an important side character in his own story. And the fact that I saw that reflected in The Boys, and then I saw that they didn't care about some of the issues that they made the character go through, left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. So I'm definitely going to watch season 5, but I don't think I'll do it with the gusto and interest that I watched the first 3 seasons with. And that's pretty disappointing, because you would assume that, the part of the story that's leading up to the climax would be some of the most interesting. And somehow it feels like it's not. And that's pretty bad, right? So I would say that if I gave the first 3 seasons of The Boys like a 9 out of 10, I would give season 4 like a 6 out of 10. Like, it's better than average. I still find a lot of enjoyment and interest in like the crazy fucked up shit that they do, but it is by far worse than the previous three. Now, you could argue that maybe that's because of the setting in which it released, or the fact that it was too real, or whatever you might want to call it. I just think that it was not as good. Regardless of the external situation, I think that internally the way that the show handles itself is not as appealing as it used to be. And I find that disappointing. So I've been watching that. I've also watched a few episodes of Stargate Season 2. And I love Stargate. It's so relaxing. It's so enjoyable. I really, really appreciate it. There really isn't too much to say because I've only watched like literally 2 episodes. And they're more or less some of the same stuff that I've mentioned before. There really isn't too much else to say about it. So I won't. I also started watching A Discovery of Witches, which is a show that I've been wanting to watch for a long time. I've been interested in that book series and that show for, a few years at this point, but it was never available in any of the streaming services that I had. It finally made itself available on Netflix, and I started watching it. I couldn't finish the first episode because I got bored of laying down in bed and I decided to go do something else. But I'm unsure about how this show got so popular and so big enough that, it's like on Stars, because at least this first episode feels very weak. The characters aren't interesting. The way that everything is acted feels dumb or not well done. And the plotline is interesting, but I feel like it's moving a bit too slow for my taste. And I'm willing to give it a few more episodes to convince me, but it feels very slow in a way that I don't think matches the type of series that it's supposed to be. Because my understanding of it is that it's like Originals or like Lost Girl or like, any of these types of like adult urban fantasy type series with like a bit more kind of smuttiness to it, a little bit more adult kind of themings to it, based on a pretty well liked book series. And the way that the characters are acting, the way that the show kind of feels, doesn't feel like it's that good. Like it doesn't deserve the praise that I feel like it has had. And that's a bit disappointing. So we'll see if my opinion of that changes. But that's basically been it for what I've been watching. In terms of what I've been reading, I have not really read too much of the stuff that I meant to read because I went down the Wandering Inn rabbit hole. So I'll talk about that first. I reread a bit of book 5 of The Wandering Inn. I read all of book 6 of The Wandering Inn. I read all of book 7 of The Wandering Inn, which means I've read like 2,500 pages worth of content, maybe more, maybe slightly less. And I'm a few chapters into Wandering Inn book 8. And I'm loving the series. I'm really enjoying it. But when I was writing down notes for the Wandering Inn book 6 review, I have noticed that it's taking more and more pages up in my notebook to review these books, and it's both enjoyable and a bit annoying to do. And so I'm concerned that I'm gonna lose interest in The Wandering Inn through the review process because of the fact that I have to write down notes for it. And these notes used to be 2 pages long, eventually turned to 3. And I think yesterday I finished writing the notes for book 6 of The Wandering Inn. And it's about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5 pages long. And maybe I'm taking more notes than usual. Maybe I'm doing something different. I don't know, something's off. But I think that it's also because the books are like somehow expanding and getting bigger and bigger. Even if it's not necessarily more words, there's more things happening. And I find that super enjoyable as a reader. But in the context of reviewing, I am finding it a bit tedious. I found the previous video that I recorded for The Wandering Inn very tedious to do. I think I did it the wrong way. I think maybe I should just sit down for as long as I can, take a break in the middle of that, and then finish it up later instead of doing a bunch of short segments, which is how I recorded the previous video, because that meant that I was forcing myself to stop and start the review more often than I needed to. And that made the review like recording process feel more annoying. The editing is normal, it's not bad, but the prep work is significantly more than for any other videos, and I'm also not sure that the videos perform highly enough that it makes that effort worth it. At the same time, I don't want to stop doing Wandering In content because I really love doing it. So I'm a little bit unsure about what to do. I thought about doing like batch reviews, like every book gets split into portions, but that feels unsatisfying. I feel like that is not as enjoyable, and it won't actually help me minimize the amount of time that I spend doing reviews. It'll only make it balloon more, because if I split like one book into 4 portions, that means that I will look more deeply into each of those portions, and I will still end up with like 5 hours of video made for a single book, regardless of how I went about it. And it'll also slow down my ability to read. What I've been finding to be the best so far is reading the book on my own time, and then when I feel like starting to prepare for the review, going back and scanning through the pages to find the most important bits, writing those down, and that's how I've been doing it for book 6. I hope that recording process for this will be better. I am going to do the same process for book 7 to test it out, and if that continues to be good, I will do it for the next couple books in the series. Although once we get past book 14, which is the book that has most recently released, I am concerned about how we're going to go about it, because those have not been prepared for ebook formatting, and so they're not split up in the way that they might need to be, and so I will be unsure about how to go about it. I probably will just end up doing like, whatever volume, whatever number of chapters the volume has, divided into an even amount, and just going through that, and that might be how, it kind of ends up being with Pirate Abba stuff. But I think I might just end up waiting a bit when I get to that point, and just kind of stopping my reading of The Wandering In for a while, and then come back to it when there's more books out, right? Because I do want to get caught up to The Wandering In, but I need clear ending and starting points for me to do my reviews for. And I'm not sure about how to go about that. And I also don't want to start doing it chapter by chapter after spending, 3 years doing book reviews, and then go back to those book reviews later on. Like, I feel like that would be less enjoyable for me. It would make me feel like I'm doing things incorrectly because I changed the format halfway through, and it would just be really annoying. So, I don't know. I did not actually talk about my enjoyment of the story, so I'll do that now. I love The Wandering In. I think it's awesome. When I did the review discussion thing with Sam Harrison, he tweeted out something about him doing this, the thing that we did together with Wandering In Obsessive Lion from HobbiesofaMan, and I think that Wandering In Obsessive is definitely the class that I would have in The Wandering In, and I appreciate that. I thought it was fun, and I think it describes my interest in The Wandering In quite a bit. I'm not like, going out of my way to look at all of the theories and all of the Reddits and all of the threads and all of that stuff, but I do, sometimes do it. I just love the series. I think that it's immensely expansive. I find myself really enjoying it, and I'm very willing to, read and reread and go back and redo and, just experience the story as many times as possible. And I'm finding that to be really enjoyable. Basically, I read book 5 like 3 times. Once when I was reading through it, the second time because I forgot a bunch of stuff and had to go back, the third time when I was doing the review, and then like a portion of it I read basically 4 times. And I've read book 6 at this point basically twice, because I said I was scanning through the pages, but I was mostly just like stopping and starting a bunch of reading. So maybe I didn't read the whole thing, but I definitely skimmed the whole thing at least twice. I did read it once though, and I really love it. I think that there are some issues, right? Timing is a big problem in The Wandering In, but it's also a big problem in One Piece. So it's not an issue that I really mind too much, because broadly speaking, you can kind of forget that, Pirate Abba has only written, like, 10,000 pages worth of stuff, about like 80 days, right? And you can kind of think that, you can kind of forget about that, because the way that the characters interact and the way that the story is structured, it almost feels like months, like nearly years have passed, right? Since Erin made her way to the Underworld. And I find that enjoyable. It is sometimes frustrating when you remember, oh, hey, a character died, chapter X, and you're on chapter, 27, and chapter X was like chapter 10. And somehow only a day has passed, but the characters feel like they've lived weeks of time by that point, and they're acting like they've lived weeks of time, like they've gotten over the character death, and then suddenly you remember, oh, it's only been a day. How have they moved on so much, right? And it's annoying because you need this sense of time to pass to create these great cathartic moments of character growth that the characters experience very deeply and very well, but the illusion of that is broken as soon as you remember, oh, Ryoka and Erin only met 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, or whatever it was, right? Technically, I think at the point that I'm reading at, there's been 87 days of the Wandering Inn. Because Lakin, one of the characters introduced in book 3, I think, has a timekeeping kind of thing as part of his chapter, where, he tells us things that happen day by day, where Erin and Ryoka don't. When you realize, oh, all of these characters arrived at the same time, only 100 days have passed, and somehow it feels like they've lived a lifetime, it kind of gets ridiculous, right? And it's the same thing with One Piece, where technically all of One Piece before the 2-year time skip happened in like 6 months. So Luffy and crew are like ride or dies from day one, and they feel like a family, even though they've known each other for 7 months at best. That's ridiculous, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And you can broadly forget about that until someone reminds you, oh shit, they've only really been friends for 7 months, even though they've had like a journey together for 3 because of the time skip, right? And so it's annoying. It's not big enough of a problem, but it was something that I noticed recently while reading, and it really bothered me for a bit. So that's why I'm making such a big deal of it now. But otherwise, I love the way that Pirate Abba manages to set up and then pull on threads and then suddenly create this epic moment that kind of just feels like it came out of nowhere, but you can clearly see was set up, books and books ago. And I find that to be immensely satisfying. So broadly speaking, I really, really love The Wandering Inn. And I think that's been enough about that. So let's talk about everything else that I've been reading so far. So for the Sword and Sorcery Book Club, I've been reading some of the miscellanea here in the back of the book. I'm about halfway through it. And basically the miscellanea, the most interesting bits here are the Phoenix and the Sword draft, which was pretty different from the original, which was pretty different from the one in the beginning of the book, in the sense that it felt more like a political kind of situation than a like small adventure within the castle. I don't know which one I like better. I probably like the one that I read first better, just because it's more familiar to me. But I found that some of the elements in the draft were a bit more compelling, and I would have liked them to be, kind of condensed into a single version, to keep some of those interesting bits from the draft. But it's not that big a deal. I've also been reading the Hyborian Age text that Robert E. Howard used as the template for his ancient history, and it's been pretty good. Robert E. Howard was someone that lived in the time period when racial anthropology was pretty big, and the idea that there was like different races that came from different backgrounds was a thing, instead of everyone just comes from Africa and diversified as they move through different parts of the world. And so some of the stuff that he talks about in the Hyborian Age text definitely reflects that. It's not necessarily that bad most of the time. it honestly feels like it's bad only when it's in like a more modern setting, right? Like when Robert E. Howard writes about characters that are much more similar time-wise to him, like Conrad and Kerouan, some of that stuff comes out a bit more, and it feels a bit more kind of disgusting and real because it was, than, stuff in the Hyborian age, where, the characters can speak like that and think like that because they don't know better, because their world is, pretty limited, and because technically within the confines of the Robert E. Howard universe, people did come from different races. Like the Lemurians used to be fish people. The Aryans were, whatever race they were from whatever, thing they came from. The Picts were people that constantly evolved and devolved and eventually became, Scottish and Irish people and stuff like that. So it's not so bad, but sometimes it is kind of cringy, it is kind of nasty, it is kind of annoying to read. But I'm still enjoying the miscellanea in the back of this book. Hopefully I'll finish reading it soon. I will not be able to review it this Sunday because I already have a video lined up for that. It's my interview with Jeff Shanks, which was a lot longer than I anticipated. It's about 2 hours long, which is great. I really loved talking to him. And we're pretty friendly, so we wanted to keep talking, but it was kind of getting to the point where we were kind of expanding beyond some of the borders of what I was looking for in the interview, and so we stopped recording, but we did keep talking after a while. And if that goes well and everyone appreciates the work that I put into that, I will probably end up doing more. I only use the free version of StreamYard, so I can only record 2 hours at a time, or I can only have 2 hours of recording on the cloud. That's part of StreamYard. So I can't record anything for the next month, but I'll set it up so that I can get around to talking to someone after that if all goes well. Hopefully Jim's up, but I don't know if he'll want to come on. It really depends. But if that works well, I will have more interviews on the Sword and Sorcery book channel. I will have at least one Conan video out by next Sunday alongside issue 15 of the series. And hopefully I'll get some of the other Conan book reviewed on the channel before the end of September. So, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens there. I also read Conan Classics #1. This is a retelling, it's a reprinting of the original Marvel Conan issue. This was printed in 1994, reprinting a book from 1987, I think, maybe something earlier than that. I can't remember. I didn't necessarily think the story was that great. I found the artwork to be pretty cool though. The colors were interesting, and I'm looking forward to reading more of it. I'm not going to collect it in single issues. I will probably save some money to buy myself one of the Titan, like hardcovers, the omnibuses, but we'll see. I actually hope that they release it differently. I feel like if they did like the Roy Thomas collection, right? And they released all of the stuff that they did for Roy Thomas in thick, in like compendium type books, right? Like thick paperbacks. I would buy those much more easily than I would buy any of the, hardcovers, just because I don't actually want a giant, brick of a book. So we'll see. I hope that they do that, but I think that they're going to keep up with the omnibuses because everyone is used to buying it that way, right? So we'll see. Let's see. Let's talk about comic books, and then we'll finish off with manga here. So, in terms of comic books, I read Barbaric vs. Deathstalker. It was pretty fun. I actually really enjoyed it. I will review it eventually. I don't know when, but at some point. And I'm not sure if I'll do it on the Sword and Sorcery book channel or on this one. We'll see. Battle of the Blackstone #1. This is pretty great. I really, really enjoyed it. It's a lot of setup, and so it is not the most exciting thing to read, but I had a lot of fun with the way that the characters were interacting and the way the characters were being used. So I really appreciated it. Then we have Helen of Windhorn #4. This is awesome. I love the series. I think it's wonderful. I will be getting the hardcover as soon as it comes out, and if they make an ultimate edition, some sort of library edition, I will buy that for sure. Then we have Dawn Runner #5. This was mildly disappointing. I would say that the series as a whole probably is like a 4 out of 5 for me, which isn't that bad. But there are some elements to the overall story that I find lacking in some ways. And some of that is mostly the choices used when deciding what to depict and when. I feel like there was a lot of opportunities missed to show awesome robot scenes that were missed for no good reason, basically. And that was disappointing. Flash Gordon number 2, pretty fun. I'm actually enjoying this quite a bit, actually. I'm looking forward to what happens in the next issue because this ended in a pretty interesting cliffhanger. We have My Adventures with Superman. This is just fun. This seems like it should have come out last year. I mentioned before that it should have come out before the second season started because it's supposed to be in between seasons, but they chose to do it later. Who cares? It is what it is. Red Sonja number 13. I love this cover. I think this is probably the best cover so far. But actually, the story was good. Never mind. I was gonna say the story wasn't that great. That's not true. It was pretty great. But I'm getting tired of it. It feels like it's just kind of spinning its wheels a bit. It is doing cool stuff and interesting stuff, but compared to Conan, the issues feel very simple, and I don't think that that's good for basically one of Dynamite's premiere series, if that makes sense. Now, I understand that most of the time they get by with just having a nice cheesecake cover, but that's not good. I'm not paying for the cheesecake cover. I'm paying for the whole thing. And the fact that it constantly feels like, there's more that can be done in each issue, it feels disappointing, right? And that's it so far. I did just buy comic books today that were left over from last week and this week. So, at the end of the month, I will have a bigger pile. But so far, this is all I had for this month. And then I have some manga here. So I read Sauron and the House of Monsters. This was awesome. I love this. The Cat Sith characters were my favorite. I love them. They were so cute. I actually really like the little golems and the little, what are they called? Korpokur characters, the little gnomes, were really, really cute. Blue Lock number 14. Awesome stuff. I love the series. I think it's really amazing. We get to finally see the Itoshi brothers fight each other, in the field, and it's awesome. It's really, really cool. Very dynamic, very enjoyable. So I thought that was great. I started reading Ultraman. I really enjoyed the first story arc, basically everything that's contained in the first book. However, I was pretty disappointed with one thing that they did, which is that the physical edition has all of these colored pages included in it. There's 8 of them. And each of these color pages, coincides with the opening of a chapter. And the problem is that when you read the digital version on the Viz Manga app, it's not actually like that. Each chapter does not have its color page. It only has whatever was printed at that time, right? So, all they did was take digital books, digital volumes, and upload the images from those volumes and remove any of the front and back matter of the book. And that is a really lazy way of doing it. I am paying a service to access these books. I deserve the best quality that you can give me for that, right? And the fact is that these images in color are already licensed. Viz has access to that. But they chose to be lazy and not put them into the part where they go. And that is really disappointing. That's very unappealing. I find it to be a shitty way of Viz to treat its customers, and I don't like that. I hope that they change it. I texted them on Twitter, or I tagged them in a post that I did, and as usual they ignored me, which I don't mind because I'm just a nobody. Why would they answer me? But I would like them to answer me because they need to explain why they did this, right? If I am paying for your service, I am buying your books, I am paying for your subscription service, both of them, why am I getting the shittiest version of the content possible? I don't understand that. I don't agree with that. I think that it's, negligence on the part of Viz, and I hope that they do better because it's not great. It's very subpar. And, by and large, Viz does have the best app. So it's not like I'm going to leave right? But I might choose to not pay for that subscription service anymore. Maybe I'll just keep the Shonen Jump one. And that's a meaningful difference in the cash flow that they're getting from me, right? So I hope that they do better, but I doubt they will, right? So we'll see. Maybe I will get rid of that subscription service. I don't know. But yeah, that's all I've been reading this month. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I read digitally that I wanted to mention. I don't think so. So I think that's all that's all there is. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you've been reading so far this month. And thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys later.